In the name of Allah, the All-Compassionate, All-Merciful. My name is Rizwan, and I love to narrate stories of ancient times. Today I have brought you the story of Adam's children, Abel and Cain. Let's start the story. In the early days of humanity, Adam and Eve were blessed with many children. Among them were two sons, Abel and Cain. This story, filled with lessons of faith, obedience, jealousy, and repentance, marks one of the earliest accounts of human interactions and the consequences of our actions. Abel and Cain grew up with distinct roles and responsibilities. Abel became a shepherd, tending to the flocks with diligence and care. His life among the animals taught him gentleness and a deep sense of responsibility. Cain, on the other hand, took to farming. He toiled the soil, planted seeds, and reaped the harvest. The two brothers lived their lives, contributing to their family's sustenance in their unique ways. In those times, the rules of marriage were different. Adam's children were born in pairs of twins, and it was decreed that a man would marry a sister from another set of twins. This was a way to ensure the growth of the human population. Abel was set to marry Cain's sister, and Cain was to marry Abel's sister. However, Cain's sister was more attractive, and Cain desired her for himself, despite the divine instructions. This preference for his own sister over Abel's led to feelings of jealousy and resentment towards his brother. To resolve the dispute and test their sincerity, Allah commanded both brothers to offer a sacrifice. Abel, in his sincerity and piety, chose the best lamb from his flock. He offered it with a heart full of faith and devotion. Cain, however, begrudged this test and chose to offer some produce from his farm, but he selected the worst of his crops, displaying his reluctance and insincerity. Allah, who knows the innermost thoughts and intentions of his creations, accepted Abel's sacrifice due to his piety and sincerity. Cain's offering, being insincere and half-hearted, was rejected. This rejection was a blow to Cain's pride and fueled his envy and anger towards Abel. The rejection of his sacrifice led to intense jealousy and hatred within Cain. He felt humiliated and unable to bear the fact that his younger brother was favored by Allah. Blinded by rage and jealousy, Cain confronted Abel and threatened him, saying, "I will surely kill you." Abel, knowing the gravity of the situation, tried to calm his brother. He replied with patience and wisdom, "If you should raise your hand against me to kill me, I shall not raise my hand against you to kill you. Indeed, I fear Allah, the Lord of the worlds." Abel's words were filled with faith and a desire to avoid conflict, emphasizing his submission to Allah's will. Despite Abel's attempts to pacify his brother, Cain's jealousy and anger overpowered his reason. Consumed by his emotions, Cain struck Abel, committing the first murder in human history. This act of violence was driven by jealousy, pride, and a refusal to accept Allah's decree. After killing Abel, Cain was immediately filled with regret and panic. He stood over his brother's lifeless body, not knowing what to do. His act of murder brought a sudden realization of the gravity of his sin, but it was too late to undo what had been done. In his confusion and guilt, Cain observed two crows fighting nearby. One crow killed the other, and then began to dig the ground with its beak, eventually burying the dead crow. This act was a divine lesson for Cain, showing him how to dispose of his brother's body. Realizing what he needed to do, Cain lamented, "Woe to me! Have I failed to be like this crow and hide the body of my brother?" Following the crow's example, Cain dug a hole and buried Abel's body, learning the act of burial from the natural world. Cain's crime left him burdened with guilt and remorse. He had committed the first murder, and his actions set a precedent for humanity. The weight of his sin haunted him, and he lived with the consequences of his jealousy and rage. Adam and Eve were devastated by the loss of Abel and the actions of Cain. Their grief was profound, and they mourned the death of their righteous son. The family's sorrow was compounded by the realization that Cain's actions had brought such tragedy upon them. Years passed, and Adam continued to guide his descendants, teaching them about Allah and the importance of righteousness. Adam lived a long life, filled with wisdom and experiences. When his time on earth came to an end, he passed away, leaving behind a legacy of faith and obedience to Allah. Upon Adam's death, his children were unsure how to perform the burial rituals. Allah, in His mercy, sent down angels to teach them. The angels washed Adam's body, wrapped it in a shroud, dug a grave, and buried him. They instructed Adam's children on how to perform these rites, establishing the tradition of burial for future generations.